VI and his loyal servant Andre
Stupid peasant.
Thank you, sir.
are about to discover that a little magic can go a long way.
It's a disaster. I've lost them in the corridors of time.
All set? Let's go.
They're strangers in a strange land,
It's a dragon! It's a red dragon! What the hell are you doing?
We have
Killed it!
but with a little help,
I need to just understand what has happened to you.
I am Thibaut VI. A wizard sent us to the future.
Wow.
they just might make it home.
Hi, honey. This is Thibault Malfait.
Bonjour.
Oh my God. Run behind the chariot, peasant.
He can't run behind the car.
He's very fast.
You can run 70 miles an hour, can you?
Have good boots.
This spring,
I need to find a wizard now.
Do you mind if I get some coffee first?
time will travel.
I've never ridden the L quite like this before.
And the future is history.
The gentleman can't eat off the floor.
He's my servant, and he's not worthy of our company.
Thank you, master!
Just visiting.
What is it, master?
Clean water.
They're bathing in the toilet.
The long towel has a good fragrance.
So, Mike, you and I spent a fair amount of time, 2025, watching French comedies, and not just French comedies, but American remakes of French comedies. When I think of French comedies that have American remake, there is literally only one film I think of. It is
Three Men and a Baby.
Tres hombres uno niño. No, that would be the Spanish language
The
version.
Spanish one, yes. Yeah.
No, I think of Just Visiting, but I guess more aptly, I think of the original film from 1993, Les Visiteurs, which then had a sequel, The Visitors 2, The Corridors of Time, which then had a sequel, The Visitors Bastille Day, which also had an American language remake, which came out not after the first film, but after the second film. That film is titled Just Visiting, also directed by Jean-Marie Poiré, which is wild that he directed all four films, including the American language remake, which is not really a thing. I mean, it isn't really. And I don't know if, well, we'll talk about it when we get there. But Mike White of the Projection Booth, this was a project that you and I had kind of taken on under my advisement because I wanted to talk about these movies with you and you had never seen them. So I am very excited to talk with you about these movies because you picked out some French comedies last year. And so I decided, why not kick off 2026 with some French comedies of my own? So
Okay.
Okay. I hate. I'm just kidding. I don't hate it, but what's the term? Diminishing? Is that what it is?
Oh, God. I think you're thinking of a cliff.
Yeah. Oh.
Because this first movie, The Visitors from 1993, wonderful film. Holy cow, was this fun. I had the best time watching this movie, was tickled pink through the entire experience.
Good night, folks.
Yeah. And then we got the sequels. But yeah, we'll get there. Chris, when did you first see this one?
So I saw Just Visiting, the original, like the original American remake, not the movie The Visitor. I saw that film April of 2001.
Wow, so you went backwards into it?
I saw Just Visiting first.
Wow.
I saw the American language remake first. I saw that when I was 11 years old in theaters. I saw that it wouldn't have been the same weekend, but I definitely saw it in the same movie theater as another film that kind of made an impression on me that I think you and I have talked about it from time to time, but I don't know how you feel about it. Well, that's not true. I do know how you feel about it in some capacity. Do you remember the film Evolution?
Oh,
the Ivan Reitman film with David Duchovny.
Right. Yes.
Your friend, lap sitter Orlando Jones.
Yes. Yeah, that was kind of like it was like Ghostbusters and Men in Black had a baby, and the baby had a lot of birth defects.
Right. Well,
Yes.
I like Evolution a lot, but that's just me. I also understand for the most part it's not a great film. I distinctly remember watching Evolution and Just Visiting in the same movie theater at the AMC in Grapevine, Texas, at the Grapevine Mills Mall, right next to the GameWorks, which was that Steven Spielberg arcade, which I thought was just the coolest fucking thing at the time. So Just Visiting has made a large impression on me. Like I said, I saw it in theaters. I actually, long ago in a the before times, but like the before times, if you've listened to this show with any sort of frequency, you'll know I covered American Psycho a very long time ago. And I interviewed Matt Ross about American Psycho. He was one of the people I talked to. And I asked him about Just Visiting at the end of the interview because he's in the American remake. And I'm not sure anyone's ever asked him about Just Visiting since. I wouldn't be surprised if anyone had. So yes, I came into this backwards, but I saw the Visitors, Les Visiteurs, the French film, 6 months ago.
Oh, okay.
It was recent. Like it was after we had watched our French films for Mike White. It was in March or May last year. I was like, oh, okay. Like I really like Just Visiting. I should rewatch that. And then I was like, right. It's a remake of a French language film. I don't feel as like arm's length with French language comedies anymore, given that we watched all those, Francis Weber films last year. So I fell into this backwards recently. But Just Visiting, the film, made a large impression on me when I was in my formative years as an 11-year-old. And look, movie's directed by the same director. It's also, the same actors. So
it's a small-ish club when it comes to directors directing the remakes of their own work. It's a lot larger than I thought it was. I did some research on that last year. I always think of like The Vanishing or Funny Games, but
right.
Looking back, especially in the early days of cinema, when people are just like, oh, well, I had this silent film, I'm going to remake it with sound or those things. That's a huge swath of films. But even past that, there are a lot of films where the filmmakers are like, oh, yeah, I want to redo this. I mean, the most famous one probably is Hitchcock with The Man Who Knew Too Much.
Right. Well, and all of the remake of it aside, also this movie has a weird distinction of being John Hughes' last movie, which is also very strange. So there's just like weird stuff about the American remake that make this movie kind of worth talking about, kind of in a just roundabout way. But for me, I fell into this backwards. So I'm curious, Mike, you had seen none of these. You had heard of them, right?
We talked about this a little while ago. I was getting this mixed up with, I think it was called The Navigators. It was I want to say an Australian or New Zealand film. It was one of the guys, Vince Ward, who was one of the people that was set to direct Alien 3. He was the one that came up with the whole idea of a wooden planet where all of these monks live. So this whole idea of like the prisoners kind of came from him, but instead in they were monks. And yeah, there's a movie that he made called The Navigators where somehow there's a portal in time and these people go from the Dark Ages to probably the 80s or 90s, whenever that movie came out. Whereas, somehow I had heard of maybe Just Visiting. I mean, it had pretty good cast and, it was 2001. So I was kind of paying attention to things, or maybe I had heard of The Visitors once, but yeah, I was not very familiar with this whatsoever. So, and I know I've seen a few of Jean Reno's French films. I think the first time I saw him and really recognized him was probably in La Femme Nikita, but then I went back through a lot of Luc Besson's earlier works, and he was in one called The Final Battle that I want to say was, and I love movies where they don't speak at all. They'll just make noises. And it was him versus another guy at the end of the world kind of thing. And I remember really enjoying it. So when I heard Jean Reno was in this, I was like, yeah, please sign me up. Especially to see him speaking French, which is something I don't generally do because I'm more familiar with his American films big time. I mean, starting with the first Mission Impossible film Onward, he's just been kind of an ever-present figure.
You want to know what I saw Jean Reno in first? You're going to laugh.
Leon the Professional?
1998's cinematic classic, Godzilla.
Oh, right. He was in that, wasn't he? Yeah.
Elvis, the king. That's what I remember Jean Reno as that character, a Frenchman who loves Elvis. And
that's right.
You know what? Say what you will about 1998's Godzilla, and people have said plenty. I don't hate that movie. It has a very special place in my heart, frankly. I remember a lot about it, but Jean Reno is good in that movie. He's funny in that movie. Like, again, say what you will about the movie, say what you will about Baby Raptor, Godzillas, and Madison Square Garden, and all that wild decision making that in this day and age feels dangerous compared to the kind of shit we get now. I mean, in a lot of ways, like nobody would be doing anything like that with Godzilla now. Like you crucified, literally.
Oh, yeah.
You'd be crucified if you did anything like that now with Godzilla.
Well, what you have to do is just rename it as Cloverfield and kind of get out of there, because
That's right.
The first Cloverfield monster is basically, or first Cloverfield movie is basically America's Godzilla. And it's kind of a shame that we never got back there again. I mean, those other Cloverfield movies, the second one was good. Like I talked about the third one.
or possibly a fourth one. Maybe even a fifth one. Yeah, God.
Maybe Cloverfield meets Stranger Things and Netflix can just have a big old party. Yeah.
Milk that cow. God, somebody's got to do it. Speaking of cow milking, there are 2 sequels to The Visitors. We'll talk about the sequels, but let's talk about the original first. And I think the remake, will probably take up, those 2 will probably take up a lot of the time, but the second and third, they have some things to talk about. You enjoyed the first one, the French one.
Immensely. Yes.
Same. I would say if you look at the original and you look at the remake, it's interesting that the remake came out after the second movie, but has nothing from the second movie in it whatsoever, which I actually think really works to the benefit of the remake, because the remake is not bad. I actually think the remake is fun, and everybody in it kind of shows up, and shockingly, it has Tara Reid in it, and she's not a complete mess. She's not known for being a great actress, but she kind of plays charming as well. I think it's funny that they really practiced restraint with the remake of the remake American version to not have any of the stuff from the second film, because the first film, I think, of all of these films is the best one. And I think it not only nails the tone of this kind of like Monty Python adjacent. I watched the film with my friend Lindsay, and she was like, this is kind of like Monty Python-ish. And I was like, that's about the closest thing you could compare it to, because, and this is just me, and again, I wonder where you come in with this, like French comedies in general of the non-English variety, be it Hindi comedies, be it German comedy films or Mexican comedy films, there is something lost in the translation. Comedy films of foreign languages are not films I search out, because they are the hardest sometimes to understand, not because what they're saying is hard, not because what they're saying is complicated, not because what they're saying is challenging, but because sometimes there is just something lost in the cultural translation of what it is. I'm just not French. There are some things that are just French-isms that I will never understand, and some of this movie traffics in that. So this was probably a harder ask for either one of us than it seems, because comedies are hard to talk about, but then foreign language comedies tend to be really... I mean, I love Hindi films, but even I don't search out Hindi comedies, because the ones that I've seen, I'm kind of like, I think I must be missing something. And I can't do anything about it. Like, there's nothing I can change about that. I can't magically become French overnight.
Well, hats off, I should say, to the subtitlers and the translators, because they captured quite a lot. The whole thing of we'll get into the characters, but the one character's name basically being Jacquouille, and just knowing, like, reading that, and I'm like, oh, okay, his name's Jackass. All right, I get this. And some of those play on words, I thought, translated very well when it came to that. I think it helps that it's a Roman language, French, so we're not completely lost from it. But yeah, I'm sure that there's a lot of jokes that I did not get at all, but what I got was wonderful.
And I do like how violent the French film is, like weirdly violent comparatively to the American one. Like they don't pull any punches. Like, I think within the first 5 minutes of the movie, you have a guy getting decapitated and a woman just being point blanked with a crossbow.
Yes, yeah.
And then a hilarious freeze frame afterwards. Like, I appreciate that this film is just kind of like slapsticky violence too, which kind of works in its favor, given the theory that, Christian Clavier and Jean Reno are 2 medieval, squire and knight. So violence is not something that they're unused to. It's kind of just part of their daily life. Jean Reno hits Christian Clavier quite a bit in this movie, or kicks him and, punches him or pushes him with some force. Like those things, I think, like that's kind of what's missing a little bit from the American one. Like this movie is kind of mean in a way. Like, and I like that it's mean because I think that maybe that's the Americanness of the other one. Like the American one feels a little too nice, you know? Like the French one feels a little mean, which I appreciate tonally.
I think even the sequels aren't nearly as mean as this first movie. I feel like the sequels, they were like, oh, this is a hugely popular film. Let's let children into the audience. And they just kind of dumbed everything down. That's how I feel anyway. Watching the first one, I'm like, oh, this is actually pretty sophisticated. I like this relationship. It's not just relying on how bad these guys smell, because that becomes the thing to go to for the sequels. And even a lot with the American remake is these people smell bad.
Right. Which is like the lowest of low hanging fruit when it comes to jokes with this kind of stuff.
And especially because as an audience member in a movie theater, unless you're seeing this in Odorama, I'm not getting that. So I just have to think to myself, I wonder how bad these guys smell. I imagine it's pretty bad, but other than seeing people's faces react, they don't do that like a Ryan Reynolds where you try to describe the smell all these different ways. You know, the way that they described Deadpool looking when he got his cancer and everything. You don't have that type of thing where it's like, oh, it smells like a monk just threw up into, you know, like something like that. You know, like I have no frame of reference. I'm like, okay, I guess they smell bad then. Okay.
Right. Yeah. It smells like the inside of King Louis's bedpan or something like that. There's none of that. Like I always think of Anchorman, you know, it smells like Bigfoot's dick. Or when they're talking about Black Panther by Odeon, it's like, that's how you do that scene. Like short, sweet, to the point. You did it like 4 or 5 times and you picked the one that vibed the best, that worked the best. Like that fucking Ghostbusters 2016 film, not how you do that.
No.
So, but yeah, this movie has like those moments that like are like maybe not the first one, but definitely the second and third one where it's just like you could have done so much more in those moments, but you're just like, they smell bad. And it's like, again, are we missing something like maybe in the translation and they are saying that and the subtitlers just aren't catching it and they're just dumbing it down so that they don't have to type everything out? Like that could be it, but I can't imagine that's it all the time. Like,
right.
I also can't imagine that the same people who wrote the first film wrote the second and third film, and the jokes in the second and third film are lesser jokes of the first film. It suffers from that thing that so many comedy sequels do, which is, oh, it was funny the first time. Well, won't it be funny the second and third and fourth and fifth time? It's like, I mean, yes, but it won't be as funny. And maybe if you belabor the point, you can bring it back around and you can get back there. And that can happen and does happen. They just never get there in these, at least not in the second and third one. The first one, they kind of do with some of the, but not in the second and third one.
Well, it is interesting. So you mentioned directed by Jean-Marie Poiré, and then you've got the writers of him and Christian Clavier, who is also Jacques in the film. And he's the most troublesome character to me. And I just wonder, was he tempted more and more? Or is it like Jean Reno said, you know what, I'll be in your sequels, but I just don't want to be the star of the sequels? Because it feels like between the first and second movies, we flip who we're seeing the most. And we just get so much Jacques and so little Papincourt or Comte or whatever his name is.
Godfrey,
yes. Yeah. So it's like, we don't even see Jacques until like 5 minutes maybe into the first movie. And it's not him just mugging for the camera. And I really like him in this first movie. I just want to make that clear. I think he is great in this first film. I think he adds the right amount of lunacy, but a little bit of him goes a long way. And you see that in the sequels where you're just like, wow, can he be any louder? I mean, some of the jokes in I want to say it's the second film with the microphone. It's like this loud guy is given a microphone. That's the last thing this guy needs because he is so fucking loud. And it's just like, get him off of the screen. Give me more Jean Reno. And this first film really fills that brief.
I think Christian Clavier is like the gentleman that we saw earlier this year in those Francis Weber films, not Gerard Depardieu, the other one.
Right.
where he is like so clearly a French icon at this point, because he is. I don't know how much research you did into Christian Clavier, but Emile Macron in 2023 said, "You have been all the faces of the families of France, the infatuated son-in-law, the bewildered uncle, the pretentious cousin, the jealous husband, the cantankerous father. We have grown and aged with you, and our children will grow and age with you." That's what Macron said not 3 years ago about Christian Clavier. So for me, I agree with you. Like, it feels like almost like you have put the horse before the cart with those second and third movies. However, I'll say this much: if people are willing to talk about you that way, it's probably because you may have let it kind of not go to your head, but like, it's hard to practice restraint when people talk about you that way. It's hard to practice restraint when you know that people are showing up because you're in the movie. And I think that the second and third movies really show a lack of restraint from the director, who, again, like you mentioned, wrote the film. Jean-Marie Poiré writes the second and third and first film, and the American language one as well. They practiced a lot more restraint in this first film than they did in the second and third one. And to your point, Jean Reno is such a big part in this movie, but not in the second and third one. And it is so noticeable that you do wonder, like, was he just like, I'll only come back if I'm at a, like, very much like whatever the minimum is for this participation that you expect out of me, because he doesn't feel like he's part of the second movie. The third movie really doesn't. Like, the second movie, I think, just kind of wastes his character, because the first movie is kind of so novel with and he's meeting his like descendant, and then there's also a descendant of the other guy who's played by him. We haven't really mentioned that, by the way, speaking of Indian cinema. And speaking of Eddie Murphy, the Eddie Murphy of it all, Christian Clavier technically plays 2 different characters in this movie, and then in the next movie he plays 3 different characters, and then in the last movie he plays, once again, only 2 different characters. But in this movie, the best one, he plays himself, the serf to Jean Reno, and then he plays Jacques Henri, who owns Jean Reno's castle now. So the whole play is the family of the servant now owns the castle of the master's castle. That's kind of the joke that they go back to several times. I'm with you. I don't think I even needed him twice in this movie. However, this is where it's done the best, for sure. It is. Definitely not in the second one. And in a lot of ways, I'm glad they didn't do that in the American language. The Matt Ross character is a welcome change to the way the plot kind of works in on itself.
Yeah, that's true. And that he's not a snooty hotel manager, because you get so much with this being 2 guys from the Middle Ages coming to modern times when this was released. You get all of the, the comedy of errors, the misunderstandings, all those kind of things. And then also the class stuff, because you've got a master and a servant coming forward in time. And it's just like, okay, this is a different type of relationship. Well, we call it by other things now. That's
right.
We don't literally throw scraps to poor people. We just figuratively throw scraps to poor people. And these days we might not even do that. Yes.
Catching up.
But yeah, to have that relationship too, and to have, the other Jacquard, as you said, who's the snooty hotel guy. So it's like, oh, okay. Or is that a hotel, or is that the?
Yeah, it's the castle that's turned into a hotel. And he can't manage it at all. Like, he can't keep it in working order at all.
Right. And that's where all of their stuff is secreted away. I mean, I do like that as well, this kind of Bill and Tedness of it, where it's like, oh, we left this thing here, a century ago or a millennium ago, because it's what, like 1130 something that they're coming from. Right, so it's like
1,000 years, almost 1,000 years later.
Yeah. So it's like, oh, we left this thing here, and we've got this, and they know the whole layout. Like, once they break through that wall, they're like, okay, yeah, I can navigate all this stuff. I mean, I really like this. The inciting incident, even in the first film, is so much better than some of these others, where it's like, it's and I love the stuff with the witch, that they capture this witch and they put her in this little wicker cage. You were talking about Monty Python, and it feels very Monty Python-esque. There's also a little bit of like Czech comedy in here for me, especially when she's in the cage and you see her arms start to extend out so she can put this stuff into his flask, and then he gets this whole like hallucinating that a bear is chasing his fiancée, and he shoots the bear, but it was actually her father, right? And so then it's like, fuck, now we got to go back in time and undo that incident. And it was interesting. They never do what happens if you meet yourself from an earlier timeline, because I think they're always going backwards and forwards the right way, that they wouldn't run into themselves. But that whole idea of we got to go back, and then they fuck up the formula. And then that whole fuck up the formula thing becomes the motivating factor for like so much of this and the sequels. And it's like, oh God, we really don't need that. Like, fuck it up one time. That's all. That's all we need. We don't need to have all of these different ways. And it just seems like such a big deal in this first film to get this wizard to make time travel formula that in the rest of these, it's like, oh, well, the lady, she can just make it. Oops, she put in Grand Marnier. Shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, it, you know what it feels like? It feels very Evil Dead.
Yes, yeah.
It's like, oh, Klaatu, Fredo, like, it's like that. I mean, like, but there's a little bit of that at the end of Army of Darkness. Spoilers for a movie that's like 30 plus years old, but I mean, at the end of Army of Darkness, he doesn't,
I slept too long. Yeah, it just depends on which episode or which version you're watching.
Well, I guess technically there is only one that's canon now, which is whatever the one that Ash versus Evil Dead follows off of, because that's canon. So I assume I think he gets back to, it's whatever it gets back to S-Mart. But there are those endings in Evil Dead or in Army of Darkness where he sleeps too long, and this movie, like this series, traffics in that. Like, to be honest with you, I actually appreciate the American remake for not doing any sort of chicanery at the end. It's like, and that's it. That's the end of the story. Like, I actually kind of appreciated that. Like, given that the second film just kind of, I really struggled to understand what was going on in the second film.
It's fascinating because I kept thinking when I was watching the second film, it just felt so half-assed. I was like, did they do a Back to the Future 2 and 3? Did they film this and the next one all together? Because it just feels like there's so much stuff missing from part 2 that I'm like, oh yeah, well, they'll just roll right into part 3, not realizing that there was an 18-year lapse between the two films. Because then when I'm watching the third film, not knowing when it came out, I'm just like, holy shit, these guys look so old. What happened? And then they explain it away in the plot. They go, oh yeah, the corridors of time, they're really screwy. They'll be aging 10 years every day or something. And that really never comes back until right at the end when they start to get the big nose and the goiter kind of thing. Otherwise, it's just, oh yeah, these guys are 20 years older than they were in the last film.
I can't imagine being someone who enjoyed the second film, which a lot of people did, made a lot of money, second highest film in 1998, and going, oh my God, that we're left at a cliffhanger here. That's not going to be answered for damn near 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'm still waiting for the end of 3 now.
Oh my God. Right. Because when given the opportunity to just end this fucking thing, we pivot once again.
Yep.
I was kind of disappointed at the end of the third movie. And by kind of, I mean, I was immensely disappointed at the end of the third movie. I was immensely disappointed at the end of the second movie, because the end of the second movie was that Back to the Future 2, where it's like, oh, so now this is not even a complete thing.
Right.
Now we have to come back to this at some point to see how this story wraps up, because no second movie could ever just be another movie. It has to be a story that must be wrapped up in the third film. I was watching an interview recently with, I would say someone we both probably think very highly of, 75-year-old Ron Perlman, who talked about, speaking of third movies never getting made, that third Hellboy movie. And he was like, I would still do it today as a 75-year-old. He's like, the fans deserve it. The fans are owed it. And you know what? Like, if you watch this second movie, I don't know how you couldn't feel owed a third movie, given that the filmmakers left it completely wide open again. And for how successful this franchise seemingly is in France, like, but then to wait 18 years and for it to be, wow, what you get after 18 years, which is, the third movie is, I get what they were going for. I actually appreciate that they're going back to something they mentioned in the first movie, which is, Jean Reno had this descendant who was alive in the revolution, and he fought for the rights of the servants and the rights of the people, and that got him killed. And Jean Reno just goes, good.
Right.
Which is fucking hilarious for that.
Well, and
throwaway gag to then be an entire movie and it never even gets nearly as funny as that throwaway gag is a shame, because it is smart to go after that gag, because I wouldn't expect it, but as a whole movie, but like you don't do anything with it, and that's kind of a shame, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it did not do anything for me. It's like I was saying, Jacquouille just gets louder and louder and more in the center with all of these, and playing the dual roles again. And the thing I liked about the first movie, just to go back to that, is the pacing of it and just how wild the movie moves. Like, as I was watching it, it felt like my head was spinning a little bit in a good way, where I was just like, wow, they are not letting any air between these scenes. They're just moving. And, it's what a good comedy does, where we set up basically a little bit of a setup and then a punchline, setup and a punchline. And each one of these scenes, it feels like it's very skit-like, very, very much just a little vignette. Yes. And they add up, they keep going, they keep moving, they go back to each other sometimes, the whole thing of like the husband. So they end up going to this house where they find this woman. And I think it's through because of what they're wearing or what they're speaking. And it's been I watched the other three this week. The first one I watched a few weeks ago. And so if I forget a couple of the details, I apologize, but they end up being with this family. I think it's Jeanette maybe and Jean-Pierre or something. And they're like a normal family, and they've got kids, and this whole thing of like them, they do have kids, right?
Yeah.
Or no, they do that. Yes. Okay. Because the kids kind of disappear in the rest of these films.
For all of maybe 30 seconds.
Okay.
You see them, and then they get referenced at the end when Jean Reno's like, I will be with you always through your children and you, like, okay,
right.
Your kids that we saw once.
Yes.
Which is fine. Like, I don't need kids in a comedy. Like, kids in movies don't necessarily add to anything.
No, and not with these jokes. And that's the thing, is like, because if you had the kids, then the kids would be like, oh, here, let me explain to you, medieval person, how this works. Whereas adults are just like, well, here's the toilet. And then they leave the room. And next thing you know, they're splashing their face and drinking out of the toilet because it's fresh water for them. And it's like a kid would be like, no. Let me help you out here, because this was me a few years ago, kind of thing. Whereas adults are just like, these are two adult men who are in this world, and they just talk in a very strange way, dress very oddly, but I'm just going to kind of let them walk around and not give them the proper adult supervision. But the whole thing of like the husband who's a dentist, and I love that the dentist office is in the house, which is very true to Europe, where you go to somebody's house for that service rather than to an office, which is fascinating to me.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, this is really kind of cool. I like all of that stuff, and you just drop almost all of that when it comes to the rest of these films. And it's just, especially like just the relationships between the family that we get with the French Revolution. I don't know how these people are related to each other. I can't really figure out what the relationships are, because it feels like we just get dropped into the middle of 5 French people that I don't know what their motivations are. Other than we are rich and we're running away from the peasants who are now killing all of us, which in 2026, I'm like, yeah, okay, yes, please.
Right. I know. That was the thing that made me laugh. The Visitors 3 came out in like 2016. So we're a little far removed from it, but yeah, I'm just like, yeah, fucking roast them. Who cares? Eat them alive.
Yeah. I'm like, yeah, I know Robespierre's not supposed to be a good guy, but he's kind of the hero of this story to me. And the whole thing of like when they go to the restaurant or the inn, I guess it is, and they're like throwing their noses up when it comes to the nettle soup, and it's just like, oh, this is so disgusting. It's like, yeah, this is what regular people eat. Sorry about that. Lady who has the inflatable wig, which might have been my favorite gag in the entire thing, her riding wig versus her day-to-day wig. But otherwise, I'm like, yeah, I don't care about any of this stuff. And the way that they escape, that's what I was saying about the pacing, is that this has that same breakneck pace, but it doesn't really seem to ever circle back. It feels like, okay, we escaped from the gendarmes in this courtroom, but they're really not after us after 5 minutes. It's just like we have to be careful of peasants with red hats, and that's about it.
Right. Yeah, it's funny, you know, the second movie does that typical thing that so many second movies do, which is like try to like bring in complicated stuff for no reason other than because. And like the second movie is overly complicated for a comedy about two time travelers. His dad is going to die, and his dad is dying because of the timeline, because that's like, wow, we're not even 10 minutes into the movie yet, and I'm already confused. Because again, like they just, it wants to be high concept when what made the first one so great wasn't the high concept. It was the kind of ensemble comedy of it all. It was the Jean Reno and Christian Clavier like back and forth. It wasn't the like, the kind of halfway sci-fi time travel. Like that was not the draw. And that seems trying to be the draw in the second movie. It's like, it's like time travel and more time travel. And they're going backwards and forwards. And he's stuck in the past. Now he's stuck in the future. And now they go all the way to the revolution time. It's just like, oh my God, like what? Will it ever end? And no, in the third movie, it's now a fucking period piece. And I think the third movie not only suffers from it being a period piece and not necessarily being very funny, because it's not that the French Revolution isn't funny, but they don't do anything overtly funny with it.
No.
It really suffers from not having some modern day goings on in 2016. I would love to see these two bozos interacting with the world of the iPhone and the world of all kinds of things. And they're just like, nah. See, like the French Revolution, that's what you were wanting to see. And it's like, no, that's not what I wanted to see. And I really don't want to see them in Nazi times either. Which was just like when I saw that there were Nazi flags above the castle, I was like, this is the hardest left turn possible. But it also tracks with the 2016 of it all. And here come the Nazis. Like, of course. Of course, 2016 was full of Nazis in more ways than one. And it's not surprising that they've come for just visiting. Right. But the third one practices the least amount of restraint of this franchise, because the third one really just has nothing of value or substance to add at all. Like literally.
And it's like they're playing around with historical figures. I mean, Marat is in this film, which was making me laugh. And they make reference to Napoleon. And sometimes Jacques's relative looks like Napoleon.
Well, and at the end of the second movie, it is Napoleon, isn't it?
Right. Okay. Yeah, that's what I thought.
So bizarre. Like it's the third movie would have totally been fine if it had come out in 2001.
Right. Yeah.
And then you would have gotten like, you know what you would have gotten in 2016? You would have gotten like Just Visiting 4, where it's like, you know, the fourth one where it's kind of this return to form and they're, you know, coming into the now times, and you're not having to like tie up the loose ends of the previous film. Like that's the other thing. They're tying up the loose ends of a movie that's 20 years old. Wow.
Right.
Wow.
Well, they didn't have that many loose
like,
ends to tie up, you know? And when they do, it's like, I don't care about this stuff.
Well, the loose end of them being in the revolution time, and that's about it, which could have been solved very easily. Like,
oh, God, yes.
Wasn't a requirement. That could have happened off screen, for God's sakes. Like, I don't find the revolution to be particularly interesting as a setting. Like Les Mis is not something that resonates with me particularly. So this is kind of, again, like this third movie is, again, kind of further afield than I would like to get with French history. I find the third movie, outside of the history of it all, to just be kind of interminable. Like there's no laughs, there's no jokes. It's like a period piece that's not funny, but it's supposed to be funny. The intent is to be funny, and yet it is so unfunny that it feels like a waste of time. And I hate to say this, and I know we've had this conversation before on many podcasts, but I'll say it here again because we're talking about a comedy, which we don't do very frequently. Last time we talked about a comedy was Naked Gun, the Naked Gun Liam Neeson film.
Right.
A comedy that is unfunny might be the worst kind of movie.
Oh, God, yeah.
I think
it was making my skin crawl.
Mm-hmm.
And I felt bad because I enjoyed that first movie so much and was just looking forward to these other ones. By the time we got to the end of the second one, my wife's like, how many more are there? And I'm like, well, a direct remake or a remake and then a direct sequel. She's like, oh, okay. So I got up early yesterday to watch the third one just to try to help her not have to see the third one. And yeah, I was like, it just felt, it's only an hour and 49 minutes, but it felt like it was 5 hours long. It felt like we were watching Les Mis or something.
Yeah, the third one is one of those, like, I have seen it now, and I never need to watch it again. And frankly, it is now probably on a very short list of things that are some of the worst things I've seen for a podcast. And I'm not going to lie. If you ask me to name some of those things, they're comedies. Funny Money is up there. This is now in contention with Funny Money for one of the worst things I've seen, this third Visitors movie. Casino Royale, the original, also a comedy. One of the worst, like something I would never want to watch again. I would dread rewatching.
Oh, yeah.
Because I've done 2 episodes on it now and I would never want to watch it again. This third Visitors movie is up there. And frankly, the second one too. Like the second one is the longest of the, and it not only feels that way, it acts like it too. It acts like it has something to say. It acts like it has some point, or that it's doing some fun kind of high concept thing. And it's ultimately not. Like where the film ends is so uninteresting. And then to know that the third movie does nothing with it ultimately just makes it that much worse. It makes the American remake seem so much more desirable if you want to watch a sequel to the original, because, you know, it's a remake, but it is different enough from the original that you can enjoy it for its own reasons. And they're still funny. Jean Reno and Christian Clavier are funny in the American remake. They're not funny in the second and third sequels. No. And that's shocking. I think the most shocking thing is that the remake came out after the second one.
Yeah, the timeline, I was just like, am I reading this right? This doesn't seem right at all. But yeah. And then, like I said, I had no idea when they showed up and they looked so old. I was like, oh, all right. I guess this is how we're doing it now, 18 years later.
And let's also, you know, they also pulled a Mummy 2, Mummy 3 here. So Valérie Lemercier in the first movie is so good as Beatrice or Frenegonde, whichever character you want to call her. But Muriel Robin in the second film is not. The chemistry that she has with Jean Reno is not the same. And it is noticeable. She doesn't even have the same chemistry with Jean-Pierre, her husband, in the second film. Like it's so noticeably different.
I mean, she's probably a great actress, but like that they went with such a different build for her, and she has a different attitude to everything. She's so much more like, oh, gotta take care of this. Oh, you know, and the other one seemed genuinely distressed. And I liked that. She was pitch perfect in that first movie. And I was like, what are we doing now? Like, okay, we're just going to call this woman by the same name, but she looks nothing like the other woman, not even the color of her hair.
Yeah. When I was watching it with my friend, I was like, oh, by the way, like that is the same character. She's like, that's what I thought, but I wasn't sure. And I was like, yeah, you could be mistaken for not realizing it, given that the movie doesn't fucking do anything. And look,
right.
How does one do something like that? Like there's, you know, I think Iron Man 2 gets a little cheeky with it. What is it, like Don Cheadle says something like, something, you look different, mask different, something. Speaking of the Mummy, they never mention it at all. They don't even draw notice to it at all, which will be amusing if they draw attention to it in the fourth Mummy movie that they're undoubtedly making, where they're coming back and recasting Rachel Weisz. So it's weird because sometimes it doesn't matter and it doesn't add or detract. In this film, the second film's case, it detracts completely. Like And the only part of the third movie that I actually was like, oh, okay, that's kind of nice, was when Marie-Anne Chazelle comes back, who plays Jeanette in the first 2 films. When she comes back in the third one for a little while, and she's married to like a black guy who is just like one of the more interesting characters in the movie, but ultimately not given anything to do. Like she's the most interesting part of that third movie, because again, like she's technically the only returning cast member other than Clavier and Reno.
And am I getting this right that in the second movie they think that she's from the past? But
yeah.
Okay.
Like Christian Clavier, the version from the present, is convinced that she is also from medieval time.
Right. Just because she is, also very loud.
Right.
Got the missing tooth and all that. And she's basically a bag lady in the first movie.
Hobo,
we just kind of forget that by the time we get to the second movie. It's like, okay, now I guess because they're living well because of the jewels and that kind of stuff. But I don't know.
Well, that's the logic that the American films, right?
Right.
I mean, that's
definitely.
And I think that's probably what's informing the way I think about the French film, right? Because written by the same people ostensibly, other than John Hughes. So I do like the idea at the end of the American film where they're in Vegas. I'm like, these 2 people in Vegas together with this money is a bad idea. And also,
yes.
they will not be able to make this last, and they will just become hobos and like drug addicts. The story doesn't have a happy ending, folks. Like,
so should we talk about the remake?
if you want to, yeah. I didn't know kind of what your, like if you had any more thoughts on those first three. I think to your point, the first movie is the best one. The second one, I think, has very little of value other than that scene with the firefighters where they're getting shot through the windows by the hoses, which is very funny practical comedy. The third movie, like I said, is one of the worst things I've seen in some time. It's an unfunny movie. Like, and that's, what else does one need to say about a comedy? If a comedy doesn't make you laugh, like that right there failed the assignment. I can't do anything else. If I ask you to bake me a cake and you bring me a burrito, what the fuck do you expect me to do? I'll eat the burrito. It might taste good, but it's not a cake. And that in and of itself, I can't do anything with. If your comedy's not funny, I can't help you. And it's like, it's not just me, it's you as well. So if you want to move on to the remake, we can. I didn't know how much else you wanted to say about those first three.
Well, I think we'll probably fall into that as we move forward talking about the remake, because there are so many marked differences. And I was shocked as hell to find out yesterday that there are two pretty distinct versions of The Visitors. One's The Visitors and the other one is Les Visiteurs in Amérique, where there's a whole different opening to the film. I don't know if you got a chance to look at that link that I sent you yesterday, but the opening of the film is at the museum where we have Christina Applegate, and I'll probably refer to everybody by their actor name since I know most of these actors. She is donating this part of a castle that she owns, and we get that later on that's what's going on. But this is what introduces George Plimpton to the film. This is what has the introduction of her and of her fiance, Big Bear, and just like then we move to the past, and even the order of events in the past is in a different order. Like there's the attack on the village first, where our hero Jean Reno sees some wrongdoings going on, and then it moves into that, and then it moves into now we're taking the carriage to the castle thing where they like kick Jacquouille off of the back of the carriage and all this stuff. So all of that stuff is in completely different order. It's a lot later that we get the one guy who goes to the witch to get the potion to basically make sure that Jean Reno, that his fiancée goes crazy. And that who I thought, well, she is played by Christina Applegate, that she would go crazy and something, but instead we get the switcheroo with the glasses. So yeah, it's so different throughout that. And then even just through little bits and pieces, but yeah, definitely we'll talk about the ending as well, because that ending is really different for this French version.
So that's the difference between the UK cinema cut and the French DVD cut, it's what's funny is, like you said, like there are huge differences, but at the same time, like I don't think it changes the makeup of the movie so much as just like changes the order of things, and like you said, like they still kind of address some of the stuff that's missing from that the original cut versus the alternate cut. They still mention some of the stuff about the castle and things, so they still address it. But I'm very curious, what did you think of the American language remake? Because I kind of haven't asked you. So what did you think of it?
So real quick, I just want to paint you a picture of me with my laptop on, watching the American version with my headphones on, and then having the French version on my television, and occasionally having to fast forward one or pause the other just so I could watch the French version with the American voice.
Amazing.
So
amazing.
That's what I was doing with this film.
We call that ADHD brain, my friend.
I thought that it was decent. I thought it was a decent film. There are parts that I wish were a little bit different. I mean, I really, the whole idea of her selling the castle and the money that's motivating it, I guess it is much more of an American thing. But at the same time, the one thing that I kept thinking of was, gosh, when it came to the French film, the French have been living in that country for so long that they could go back and forth for, 1,000 years. Whereas America being such a young nation, for us invaders that came over, I mean, yeah, okay, you go back in America's history to 1100, you're not seeing a whole lot of white people. It's not my descendants or my predecessors did not live here 1,000 years ago. So such a marked difference when it comes to just the premise has to change so much that I guess that their souls are entwined with the castle bricks themselves. Thus, they can travel from France in the 1100s to Chicago. There's Mr. Hughes's influence, I suppose. Chicago of 2001. Did this come out? So
yeah, 2001.
Yeah. So it was just like,
why is it in Chicago, folks? Because John Hughes. That's
and we get to see that fountain from Married with Children, and Christina Applegate's there, so I'm laughing about that. So that was a nice little inside joke.
Well, and it's just, like it feels, if you know it's a John Hughes movie, there are parts of it that feels very John Hughesian, and the Chicago of it all, kind of like it, because John Hughes was not unknown for high concept stuff. I mean, when I think of some of the stuff that people really resonate with John Hughes, I mean, one of the things I think about is Weird Science. And that's a pretty weird out there movie. And he wrote.
Especially when Anthony Michael Hall turns into a black man at one point.
Like that's a different.
No. When he starts talking about, I called her every day on the telephone, that whole thing. You not remember the scene I'm talking about?
I haven't seen Weird Science in a long time.
He's doing the worst racist black voice you could possibly imagine.
I thought you were just making a C. Thomas Howell Soul Man.
No.
I was like, is he just doing a soul? Is he riffing on Soul Man once again?
No crossover.
New Weirding Way Media podcast, riffing on Soul Man with Mike and Chris.
That's all we do is just riff about it for like a few hours. We come back the next week, we riff about it again. The next week, riff about it still. The funny thing is, it was all just a marathon 48-hour riffing session that we cut into hour-long chunks.
How long do you think you could riff about that for? How long
4 minutes.
It's just, could you riff that long about something like that? Could you pull a nice long riff? No, I don't think so.
I could probably do an episode on it. So I could talk for at least an hour and a half about it, but I'd probably be focusing at least in half an hour on Chet and the greasy pork sandwich served in a dirty ashtray.
That's right.
I would definitely be talking about the Michael Berryman character and how he's a teacher.
Oingo?
I really.
What about Oingo? You've spent half the time just talking about Oingo.
Boingo, yes, of course, and how they use that sample from Bride of Frankenstein. Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah, so there's your 3 segments right there. All right, we'll be back right after these brief messages.
That's right.
Oh, and then all right, we're back and we're talking about Weird Science. I really want to talk about the science of Weird Science. Do you think that, well, let's see, in a modern day where we've got Megan 2 and Companions, and there was that one with Megan Fox that was recent. I mean, let's talk about synthetic women
too. Where she plays a giant chicken. So does that count?
Maybe, but yeah, the whole idea of these pseudo females, which is interesting that they do go all the way back to Bride of Frankenstein, but really we could even go back to
Metropolis,
one of the science fiction's earliest film adaptations of Metropolis here. Yeah, so there we go. There's a little taste of the projection booth episode for you.
Of Weird Science. Somebody please donate at whatever level forces Mike to do things.
Yeah. Become the assistant to the regional manager on my Patreon.
That's right. Good Lord. I'm glad we watched the remake, because I think the remake actually makes a case for being the only other thing of this you should watch.
I agree. I didn't love the remake, but I liked it quite a bit. And it's different enough. Like, they don't just do a straight recycling of jokes for the most part. And when they do recycle one joke, I'm just like, it's not funny in this. For whatever reason, it's very funny in the first movie when Jacquouille is grabbing the sconce on the wall and rips it out, and then it goes out, and he's just like so puzzled about it, and then he walks along and he grabs another one and keeps doing that. That's very funny in the first movie, and I think it's because it's at that very posh hotel, and we can tell how angry the other guy's going to get because it's his hotel and Jacquouille is destroying it. In this movie, it doesn't make a lick of fucking difference, and I'm just like, this, okay, it's the same joke, but in the context, it is not funny whatsoever.
No, and that's when they're at the restaurant.
Right.
where I
And who
think that-
cares about the restaurant? Because
I think they tell a better version of the lamb leg joke in the restaurant with the chicken a la umbrella where the maitre d' is walking around with the umbrella with the chicken on fire. That I think actually kind of works better than the leg of lamb, which ends it doesn't like, the only thing that's funny is I'm convinced the actor actually burned himself in that moment, because his reaction seems like a genuine one where he's like, oh my fucking God, it's so hot. I'm like, it's pretty sure you actually touched. It's like that Leonardo DiCaprio and Django moment where it's like, I think he's actually hurt himself.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that I appreciate about the American one that the French one does, and the French one does, I think we've mentioned a lot, the American one doesn't have Christian Clavier playing multiple characters.
Right.
And I actually appreciate that because, like you said, I think for me, the best version of his character is the one in the American one because it's the most pared down and kind of focused version of it, where it's just him.
He's taking his meds that morning.
Yeah. He's the servant. It's just him. There's nothing else. Jean Reno is more of the focus. You actually because you have Malcolm McDowell in the movie, you do actually get the wizard character as more of a character, which I think is also interesting. And Christina Applegate and Jean Reno have really good chemistry together. Like, surprisingly, I actually like the two of them. Like, they actually kind of work as like descendant and like great granddaughter or whatever. I actually think they have really good chemistry, which helps with, I mean, again, he has really good chemistry with Beatrice in the French film, but there were some things that the remake avoids, kind of either by design or just by luck, that make it a much better movie than, say, another French remake, the Jungle to Jungle, which is a remake of Little Indian Big City, I believe, which that movie compared to the original is, I mean, like, I like Jungle to Jungle, but it's not a good movie compared to the original. Just Visiting, I think, is a good movie. Not a great movie, but I think it's a good movie, and it's better than some of those Francis Weber remakes we saw.
Oh, that's for sure.
Which is, again, not hard in some respects, but it is hard in a lot of others.
You're absolutely right that having Malcolm McDowell in here, and I was afraid it was going to be one and done, like one scene, maybe one day of shooting for Malcolm, that kind of thing. But when they bring him back and he travels time, I was just like, okay, this is a good twist. I like that they're doing this and not sticking so much to the original. I mean, I like the wizard in the original, and I think that they handle the original perfectly. But when it comes to if we're going to need to make changes, you got Malcolm McDowell, bring him into this movie more. And I just love how easily he gets along in the modern world. He figures shit out so fast that basically the first time you see him, he's coming out of a store and he's got his arms just full of all the stuff that he's going to use to make this potion. And those amazing American boots that he's got, American flag boots, and he's got the big fucking wizard beard still, but he's got a cowboy hat on. I'm just like, this is great. He looks amazing. And well, I mean, Malcolm McDowell always does, but cowboy wizard, I would like to see a movie just of cowboy wizard, please.
Yeah, thank you, by the way, that you resonated as much with the Malcolm McDowell character as I hoped you would, because he, for me, low-key, is probably the best part of these movies. Like, he's so funny and so weirdly iconic looking. Like, it's Merlin. It's Cowboy Merlin, as played by Malcolm McDowell. Like, that's not a thing I ever knew I wanted, but now that I've gotten it, like, fucking give me that, please, like, in whatever format possible.
I would like to see Cowboy Merlin meet Techno Viking. I think that would be a great crossover.
Played by Chris Hemsworth.
Oh yeah, of course. He's got the build. I think he could do it.
I think he plays characters like that professionally sometimes.
That's one of the things that's missing from the American or UK cut of this is there's a shot of Malcolm McDowell after he explodes. You get his torso. Like, you see his torso later on when he pulls himself back together, but you get this shot of his torso like sitting up, and then it keels over, and then I think he might wink before he dies. Maybe I'm just thinking of Anaconda, but like, you get one more shot, and I guess it was just too much for the UK audience to have like this torso, the armless, legless torso just keel over, which I thought it was a great shot, and I really wish that they had kept that.
And I'm a huge fan of that. The imagery of him being like a T-1000
yes, that was
like
great.
A liquid Merlin cowboy Malcolm McDowell. now we're just adding even more qualifiers in. Yeah, I will say we haven't really talked about it with any of the movies, but there are some interesting special effects being used both in the French one, because we have a headless body kind of wiggling and walking around at one point.
Mm-hmm.
We have them kind of transforming when they drink the potion. Like those things are all, I actually think they work kind of well, and they're very like interesting and well done. The third movie doesn't really have anything like that. Like the second one has a little bit. But I do like those scenes where they're time traveling and how they like transform into things. I think the American one also does it really well. Like I
think in the first time that they travel time, they just turn into big piles of shit.
Well,
and
Christian
I know that
Clavier does for sure.
Okay. And and they use that joke again in one of these. I don't remember which. But yeah, I agree. Especially I like in this American remake when he becomes just a head bouncing around, and then Jean Reno becomes an ice Chris Stachiw and explodes. I thought that those were great.
It's interesting imagery. Like it's very fun, unique kind of it's an interesting choice that you don't really see in a lot of, I mean, again, like fantasy stuff. Sometimes fantasy stuff can get weird. Like, and then this, I think, is one of them. The scene where Matthew Ross goes back in time, also fucking strange. Like it sucks his face into a hole and then his whole body goes into it. Like it's so weird, but it worked. I will say also, I appreciate that they have an externalized villain in this movie. That it's not just like, oh, it's the character being played by the same actor. Like, I like that Matthew Ross is a villain. He's kind of like a Christopher McDonald type, like a very easy to hate, late 90s, early 2000s comedy villain. Like, he works really well. Like, I like Matt Ross. Bridget Wilson is fun. Like, Tara Reid, surprisingly, don't dislike her at all. Like, I think she's great. Like,
oh yeah,
I think the casting's pretty on point.
She can be wonderful when you see her in something like Josie and the Pussycat. She's perfect in that role. But yeah, I think one of these days somebody's going to realize, or like the zeitgeist is going to come around, and it's going to be, wow, Christina Applegate is a really good actress, because she is.
She's so funny.
Every time I see her stuff, I mean, we just talked about her in Vacation. Mm-hmm. She's so good in that.
She steals the show in that fucking movie. She's like the funniest part of that movie. Demi does it all, or whatever the fuck. Like, that whole scene is so funny because of her.
Oh God, when she and I know it's probably a stunt woman, but when she bounces off of that drinking game thing and lands on the lawn and just starts to vomit everywhere. I mean, that's not a stunt double. The vomiting, she is great when it comes to that.
Mm-hmm. Christina Applegate is an actress who this was the first thing I ever saw her in. Like, and this is. We're 2 years removed from, I think, the thing that when I think about her as an actress, I think it's one of my favorite. It's probably my favorite thing that she's in it, which is Anchorman. Like, she's so funny opposite Will Ferrell. It's one of those things where you could watch that movie and just focus on her character, and it would be just as funny of a movie in a completely different way than it is if you focus on Will Ferrell. But her and Will Ferrell are so funny in that scene where they're just going back and forth. You always smell like a hoe. Like that back and forth. Like, it's so funny. Oh, yeah. She's really funny and able to stand up against Will Ferrell, who at the time is like the biggest fucking comedic actor, and she's just standing up to him. Like, she's a really good comedic actress, like, and an actress in general, but comedically very gifted and, like you said, underrated.
I really like that the villain is sleeping around with Bridget Wilson, but then you find out that he's also been sleeping with Tara Reid as well. So it's like, okay, he's really getting around. So cheating on the person he's cheating with, it was really nice. And then, like you said, the relationship that Jean Reno has with Christina Applegate, that chemistry of those two on screen together, really well done. And it's not such a May, December type of thing, like where I'm like, oh, well, she better not fall in love with him. I'm like, it'd be okay if she fell in love with this guy. It'd be weird because they're relatives and everything, but it's just like, okay, he's very, very charming, and she's so charming, and her fiance is just such an asshole. And I love that he just is asshole from the first moment. I mean, depending on which cut you watch, we basically meet him when he's got Bridget Wilson crawling across the desk and talking to Christina Applegate on the phone at the same time.
Bridget Wilson Sampras, by the way.
Oh, yes, sorry.
Married to Pete Sampras this whole time.
Yeah.
I love Bridget Wilson. I mean, I always think of her as Sonya Blade from Mortal Kombat.
Oh, of course.
So,
yeah. Or most famous role.
Or I guess as 1/3 of the best part of Billy Madison, the other third being fucking Darren McGavin, which is a weird thing. But she also is able to. I mean, she's funny. They don't give her much to do, unfortunately, in this movie. But that's when you're kind of like the secondary villain, I guess.
Right. Yeah.
We didn't mention Christina Applegate. They do have her pulling double duty in this movie. She's the only one that pulls double duty because they have her playing the Jean Reno love interest at the beginning of the movie, which I actually think here works better than in the French one because their chemistry kind of works better and their relationship is a little bit more defined. And I think it also works better because she's not married.
Right.
It feels very different when she already has a husband. Like there is some chemistry here that I think actually, yes, they're relatives, but let's just ask a theoretical question. We all agree the situation in Back to the Future where Marty McFly's mom's trying to fuck him is weird, right? Like,
oh yeah, it's very
that's
weird.
Because it's his direct mother, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
This scenario, if Jean Reno and Christina Applegate got together in modern times, not that weird.
Yeah, it might
be like so far removed, though, right? I'm more speaking to the immediacy of it. Like he's
we're
so
talking
far
1,000
removed.
years.
Yeah, right. Well, and
But then
again,
she looks exactly, and that's the thing. It's so interesting because that's where you get the grandfather paradox thing, right? Because it's like, okay, well, obviously, you know that you're going to succeed in going back in time because this woman looks exactly like your soon-to-be wife. So there's no way that she can look like your soon-to-be wife unless you've impregnated that person.
You can't fail here. Your failure has been predetermined as not happening.
Right, because she's got the same like last name and all that.
She looks
code.
like her.
Right. So I'm just like, because I'm like, no, it's not like she just she marries some other guy and has a great granddaughter who looks like this. It has to be in that family and so I'm just saying like, every single time we get into one of these movies and you realize like, oh, his line carried on, because that's the thing in the first movies, he's just like, hey, I need a son because I want my line to continue. Obviously it has. So you might as well just sit there and go, okay, well, at some point I'm going to go back in time because this succeeds, you know?
Right.
She wouldn't be here unless I succeed in fulfilling my mission.
Right. Which, I mean, robs the movie of its stakes, but at the same time, like, that's the stakes that the movie has to navigate. Because if you sit and ask that too quickly, like you said, like, how could she look that way if she's not the woman that he succeeds in marrying, which means he went back in time and succeeded, like, or forward in time.
Right.
So that's the thing that this movie gets into trouble with that the original doesn't, but it technically does because the same actress is playing Frenegon that is playing Beatrice. So they are kind of getting themselves into that murky water with that. I just think the American one, I don't know, the American one pares down so much of the French one. The French one has some like the signet ring in the first movie, like completely unnecessary, kind of goes nowhere. I like that the joke in the second one is that she's still driving that goddamn car that the ring blew out of the ceiling. I think that is very funny. And then at one point, the Jeanette is like throwing the silverware into the car through the hole in the top of the car is funny. That's a funny carry through joke. But like the thing that the American one does, and I probably have to give the credit to John Hughes, given that all things were considered the same across the board. He kind of streamlined away some of the unnecessary stuff from the French one, like the hidden treasure in the basement of the house, like some of those things, like again, they kind of just don't go anywhere. Like you could have gotten there in a different direction and you kind of, in the French one, like that's such a huge plot point. Like that castle becomes such a huge sticking point, a huge plot point that it almost feels like, at least with the first and second movie, like those movies are both just set in this castle and nowhere else.
Well, it is interesting too in the first movie that where they end up when they get picked up by Beatrice is a very Beatrice, right? Is the nice lady?
Right.
When they get picked up by her, that she lives in a pretty pastoral place. It's not the big city. Whereas this one, you get the double dip of I'm coming out of the Middle Ages and I'm walking into Chicago and the overwhelmingness of Chicago. I mean, I can't imagine if they saw the Bean. Thank goodness that wasn't there at that time because they'd probably just freak out and attack it.
Well, that's what I always say. I was sharing cigars with a friend of mine a couple weeks ago, and I was like, "Can you imagine if someone from like 1950 was dropped into the world right now? They'd have a hard time understanding like iPhones, let alone like some of the other things we take for granted. But anyone from like 100+ years ago would have the hardest time at dealing with any of their heads would explode before you could even explain to them like a car, like or like motorized vehicles, or even like television or photographs, for fuck's sake, in a lot of ways, like color photography, moving pictures, like, and yet like these guys are just like, hey, look, a car, let's stab it. Like, right. The immediate response is violence, which I appreciate. That's very in keeping with the characters. But yeah, no, like, I don't think these guys would be having as good of a time as they're having. By the third movie, they're like, where are the cars at? And it's like, okay, you guys have been desensitized to cars now, but let's not pretend 2 movies ago that you guys were down with motor vehicles because you attacked them. So no.
Well, it's funny because I just, we were talking about Hammer House of Horror before we started recording. I think it's the very first episode of that. It's a witch from like the witch trials in England coming forward into more modern day, and the guy is freaking her out by turning the lights on, and it's just like, so she's like, oh gosh, and he's like, oh, turning them on and off and stuff. So when they did the exact same joke in this, I was like, where did I just see this recently? So because yeah, it's like they are so fascinated by the smallest things. I love when they're taking the bath and they've got the huge bottle of Chanel No. 5 and mixing that with like toilet cleaner and all that, just anything that they can do to try to make this smell better. And then you're just like, well, what does good smell like to them? Because they've never had toilet cleaner or perfume in the past. I'm sure they had some sort of perfume in the 1100s.
I do love him using that entire bottle of Chanel No. 5.
Yes. And then just like,
more of this?
He's got any more of this? Yes.
Yeah. Honestly, like the jokes that have stuck with me from Just Visiting are the urinal cake that Christian Clavier snags and he's offering to people when they leave the restaurant. That one has stuck with me. How he describes the potion tasting in the American one, it tastes of the shit of the pork. I don't know why that makes me laugh so hard, but Christian Clavier's like delivery is very funny. But I do find that for me, and if you can't tell just the things I've mentioned, most of what works for me in the American film is the Christian Clavier character, which is funny because I find for me, those second and third films really don't work because of his character. And like you said, the overcommitment to it. But in the American one, it's like the pulling back. It's the restraint that's practiced. And I think it's also maybe because, and this could be another part of it, Christian Clavier means nothing to American audiences.
Right.
He's getting paid good money.
Oh yeah,
fucking way. But he doesn't have the same meaning to you and me. Like it's the Chow Yun Fat thing, right? Like Chow Yun Fat doesn't mean much to American audiences, but to Chinese audiences, like to Hong Kong cinema, he's a god. And Christian Clavier, same thing. It's like he has no cachet in the United States, so it's okay to kind of sideline him in the American one. And it kind of works to that film's favor, really. Because again, like I see now what the second and third movie looks like if you overcommit to his character, and it's just interminable.
Oh yeah, no, I totally agree, and I don't know if it's that he's now speaking English. I mean, he speaks English incredibly well, so fluent, as well as Jean Reno, of course, we know. But I wonder if that makes him slow down a little bit or tone it down a little bit if he can't maybe yell in that or whatever. But yeah, he has taken this performance from an 11 back down to like an 8 or a 9, which that gives him a little bit of room to go up when before he was just playing it to the hilt all the time. Not in the first movie, but in the second and third movie, he just gets so out of control and it becomes the Jacquouille show. And it's just like, no, I find Jean Reno to be a lot more interesting. You are the comic relief. The comic relief shouldn't have center stage.
I would go as far as even to say with something like the American version versus the French version. In the American version, like the Christian Clavier character is so empathetic compared to the one in the French one. Like he's so empathetic and like you really feel for him. He's really like you said in the French one, okay, like that is just like,
oh boy,
shut the fuck up, dude. Like it's a bit much. Like it becomes a bit much in the terms of like the joke being like driven into the ground and then straight into the core of the earth. Like you've belabored the point at this point. In the American one, there's a little bit of that, but it ain't that like repeated over and over and over again. It's weird. Again, like I do like the French version, but I might actually say this is a weird thing. I actually think the American version is better than the French one in terms of like approachability for not just American audiences, but I think a lot of the people who would be watching this movie now. I think it removes the things that the French movie doesn't do well in the first one and does worse in the second and third. But I think in terms of making it something that doesn't have the things that would ultimately go on to ruin this franchise, being Christian Clavier just kind of running rampant, the American one has him in the least amount.
Oh, yeah. Well, they do a really smart thing when it comes to, in the first movie, and we get that in the title of the second movie, The Corridors of Time. And it becomes this whole thing. You mentioned the hidden treasure. And really, if he hid the treasure, there shouldn't be any sort of temporal problem with him having the treasure in the modern day. But it becomes this big deal in the first movie where it's like, oh, you have to have all the treasure, and you have to have, and I think that's even more in the second movie, that you have to make sure you get every single bit of this treasure. It's very Curse of the Black Pearl, right?
Black Pearl. Oh yeah, it's very Johnny Depp Pirates of the Caribbean.
Do you like French farces? You're in one.
That's right. That's right.
So, and then it's also, well, you have to have Jacquouille come back with you. And Jacquouille is like, listen, no. And it feels much more heartfelt in this, where it's like, listen, no, I have status here. Like, there is no more feudal serf kind of shit that's going on with me. I have this now, and I've got this beautiful girlfriend. Like, let me stay here. And in the first movie, they're just like, yeah, you know what? Fuck you. No, you're going to go back with me. And that's what sets off everything, which is the cousin or the descendant, looks so much like Jacquouille that he gussies him up and he goes back in time, which ruins the whole Corridors of Time balance and yada, yada, yada. And with the American remake, it doesn't matter. He doesn't have to go back. There is no, like, there's a little bit of treasure, but he stole it in the past, brought it to the future. Apparently, that's not a problem either. That's
he's
not
had
going
it
to
on him
ruin.
the whole time.
He's had it on him the whole time. He's not going to ruin the Corridors of Time by him spending this treasure and by him going off with Tara Reid at the end of the movie. It's so much easier that way, and I think that it's nice. I imagine they didn't think we were going to get a sequel, so they just trimmed all those loose ends, so they don't have that automated, oh, you have to have a sequel to this thing, we better set it up a mile away. I've seen movies without a sequel. Well,
the first one didn't really, like, it kind of did just end. You have
Jacquard is back in time, yeah.
But that's punishment at the end of that first movie, just like with Matt Ross's character.
True.
At the end of Just Visiting, that's just punishment for his character. Like, that's just, the way the movie's metering out the punishment to his character. It becomes so much more when you expound upon it in that second film. And then it's like, okay, so what were the stakes then? Like, so you fucked everything up by doing this. Okay.
Well, and then they give, I was talking about this whole idea of, in the first movie where he's like, listen, I've got this agency. The second, the remake, they really hit that with like, hey, stand up for yourself. And the way that Tara Reid is talking with him and just like, you really need to set the record straight and let him know that you're no longer the servant. And then he kind of cowers at one point. She's disappointed in him. It's like an actual plot, if you can believe that. And then you come to the third movie, obviously the least one. And it's all about class relationships and what's going on with the French Revolution. And it's like, this is your chance, Jacquouille. Like, do it. Like, talk about like how you want to be your own man and that you had that in the previous film. It's like, where was that? Where is that stuff that was happening then? You've now got this beautiful stage of trying to level the playing field between the haves and the have-nots. And you don't really use that opportunity whatsoever.
Somehow the American film does a better job of that.
Which is weird. Yeah.
It is.
I guess it's that whole, anybody can grow up to be president, even if you have 34 felony counts.
That's right. You know what they say. It's a level playing. It really is.
Yeah. Oh, of course. It's America.
Right.
Anybody. Yeah. Anybody can be a millionaire, sure, or billionaire or trillionaire now. So
I mean, if you're a French serf who stole some jewels and pawned it at a pawn shop, you can live off that for a while.
You know what? You could have your father own an emerald mine and cede all the proceeds to you. That would be pretty good.
Or speaking of nepotism, your father could just be Emerald.
Yeah, there you go.
Lagasse.
Emerald Lagasse. Okay.
It's true.
Yeah.
His son has a 2 Michelin star restaurant named Emerald's in New Orleans, which his father opened and got Michelin stars for it. Now he just took over.
Oh, really? Okay, that's how.
But I mean, you got to maintain those Michelin stars, baby. I went and had a Michelin star meal last year. That was a 3 Michelin star restaurant. It is now a 2 Michelin star restaurant.
I know.
I'm kidding. I'm dead serious.
Are you watching Culinary Class Wars on Netflix these days?
I haven't. I want to, though.
It is amazing. And you, as an Iron Chef fan, I would just watch it in the English dub, and just some of those voices sound like some of the old voices from Iron Chef.
Oh my God. You make my heart flutter when you talk about Iron Chef.
It's good.
I forget how much of the stuff I watched growing up was foreign language or foreign language adjacent, because I kid you not, my family and I still quote Just Visiting now as adults, 24 years on, 25 years on, and it is a remake of a foreign language film. Like, that I didn't see for 24 years. I think that actually speaks to the quality of Just Visiting as a movie, that I never thought to myself, let me go watch those other movies.
No, it doesn't have that touch of strangeness that sometimes you get with American remakes of foreign films. I mean, we saw that
shockingly
so much.
Straightforward.
Yeah. Oh yeah. This really feels, and again, it's probably hats off to John Hughes, just really Americanified this whole thing. And yeah, it does not have that. Oh gosh, I wonder what the original is like. Like every time True Lies comes up on TV, I'm just like, I gotta go back and watch the original. I imagine the original was so much better than this, because this just doesn't feel right. It doesn't. And I don't know if it's a James Cameron. I don't know if it's the anti-Arab racism that's going on, but something just doesn't feel true to me. And sometimes I think it's that whole idea of the Bill Paxton character, because he feels like a French character who escaped into an American movie.
Yeah, well, and I was going to say, that for me is the weirdness in True Lies, is the, slowly, all of that, all of the Bill Paxton, all the stripping in the room, all of that feels very French.
Very French, yes.
And none of this movie this movie is so un-French that, like I've been mentioning, I watched the first 3 movies with a friend of mine, and by the end of it, I was like, okay, we will watch the last one together after all of these, and it will redeem these last 2, because I did not expect the last 2 to be bad. But I was like, at the end of it, I was also like, it's also, I think, probably in a lot of ways the most approachable, accessible, but also the most odd, because these kinds of things, like you said, don't work. Rarely do they work with the same director. So this movie isn't a weird, small list of things where it's a remake of the film directed by the original director, written by the original writers, plus one of the most well-known American comedy writers of the 80s and 90s. Plus, on top of everything else, it's 2 of the original actors, ostensibly the 2 main actors, are also in it, and they're not sequelized versions of themselves. This is a reboot or remake completely. I would have rather seen a sequel to the American film than the French one. If you're asking me what I'd rather see, given that where they leave the American one, there is no imminently obvious sequel. With the French one, there really wasn't either. But when they did that Back to the Future stuff with the second one, it's just oh, okay, now we know what the third one's going to be if they ever make it. And if they ever make a 4th one, which God willingly they will, it'll be them in Nazi times, which, okay.
Yeah, I'm hoping maybe they start there and quickly do a voiceover, maybe get Alicia Witt Virginia Madsen to come in and say, in the 2 standard years that followed, they defeated all the Nazis and retook Alsace-Lorraine, something like that.
Why wouldn't they get the narrator from the American version?
Oh, yes, Mr. Kelsey Grammer there. That's also a nice thing, is there's no narrator in the French version either, especially to know Kelsey Grammer. Thank you.
Kelsey Grammer just doing what I could only imagine is like his best sideshow Bob as William Shakespeare.
Oh God, yes,
Oh, yep.
yes.
Kelsey Grammer, like, oh,
Hardly ever.
D, Bart D. Like, oh my God, dude. Like, every time I watch Just Visiting, I always forget that Kelsey Grammer is just like front and center in the beginning of the movie. And it it is the worst part of the American movie, without a doubt. But you know what? Like, I think it's the worst part, but it totally works because it gets you where you need to be at the beginning of the movie, and then it drops out and doesn't come back.
Yeah. I was really glad that it doesn't come back. Like
There's
I
no,
said,
like Dudley Do writing of it all, where it's like, and now to see what Tebow is doing, like, which I mean, George of the Jungle, Dudley Do Right, very funny movies. I just don't think that would have worked here. But again, like if you have Kelsey Grammer as the narrator of your movie, there might have been some restraint being practiced to not have him be more present in the movie, because 2001 Kelsey Grammer, popular guy. Like, there's a reason he's narrating this movie, because Frasier is very popular.
Him and David Hyde Pierce had like a whole side business of narrating things for quite a while.
And just being in things together now as well.
Now I think Kelsey Grammer is just going to be, talking about True Social or some sort of right-wing cause if he is going to do any voiceovers these days.
Or spoiling MCU movies or falling off of stages. So take your pick.
Right.
Whatever Mr. the big KG is up to. It is weird that they added narration, but I think, again, like in terms of this being high concept, it helps ease you into the story. It makes it feel kind of like a fairy tale, like storybook adjacent, which I mean, again, like the tone of the American one is so flights of fancy and not as kind of like serious. Like the violence isn't there. Women aren't being murdered. Men aren't being decapitated, which I don't have any issue with. I actually prefer a little bit of like edge to my comedies, but the American one is so kind of like fairy tale-y that I think that it actually, like, the tone totally works with what they're getting at with the American one.
Yeah, I mean, the one real act of violence that I can think of is a guy getting an axe in his chest, but then they use a Wilhelm, and they use a premature Wilhelm. He screams before he gets hit by that axe. So
that's right.
That was weird. I want to talk about the end of this movie and all of the different endings, because they have to wrap up everything. And there's a little bit extra on the French one.
It's like Return of the King in a way, really.
Yeah, exactly. You bow for no man, so or no one, I should say.
Christian Clavier, everyone is bowing to him. Yeah,
right.
Short, right? He's Hobbit-esque, diminutive, one might say.
So the endings are similar. They're in a different order. The French one ends so it starts in medieval times when they go back. You've got Malcolm McDowell still wearing his cowboy hat. You've got Jean Reno kissing everyone back awake. They're like statues, and he kisses Christina Applegate, and then he doesn't have to kiss everyone. That would be kind of weird, but everyone in the entire world, he has to kiss them awake. That's the rest of his life is kissing awake these people. Yes. But no, he kisses her. Everyone comes back, including the king, who looks like the king from Burger King, very much to me.
Dude, for real, by the way, thank you for fucking mentioning that. That is like the last time I watched this movie, is like, doesn't that character look like Burger King? It's like, wait, what the fuck? I was like, no, like literally, really? Like really, like it's not an accident. I haven't done interviews for episodes in a very long time, but if I could interview the production designer of this movie, I'm just curious. As a curious mind, the outfit. Yeah, as a curious mind, this guy's a redhead and he looks like the
and there's like the Sheriff Nottingham type character. We never really get a good backstory for this guy, but Jean Reno's like, oh, go ahead, try this wine. And the king is like, yeah, you should try that wine. And he basically backs himself out of a window. Jean Reno does not kill anyone. He just backs him out of a window and he falls out. And then
makes it like Sean Connery-esque goof, like,
yes.
He did not like the wine. I think that's essentially the gag.
And then we've got Matt Ross as the fiance, as Big Bear, drinking his protein thing. And I'm glad that she mentions that very early on, that they taste disgusting and he's the only one that drinks this. So he slams this stuff and then just happens to lift up the Latin spell that's there, just laying on the counter. Thank you, Malcolm McDowell, for leaving that. Yeah, he goes back in time in a really grotesque way with that mouth opening like a train tunnel. That was so strange. And then cut to Tara Reid and Jacquouille going across the country and just having a good old time. But then and I know this is a different order in the US one, but then you have the whole thing of Christina Applegate in the present, visiting the castle that she owns and meeting that very handsome lawyer dude. I mean, he's cute. I don't know if he's handsome. But then you go back to the medieval times and he gives her this little hair clip that he clips onto. It's a gift from her great-great-great-great-granddaughter from Christina Applegate to Christina Applegate with love. And we pull out from there. But then you get the credits, and the credits go over a whole scene of it a little bit longer than the one in the US. And this is, again, it's under the credits, and it's Matt Ross being dumped back in time. And at first he's Matt Ross, but then at first he's the character, but then he is Matt Ross. He like breaks through the fourth wall. I don't think that's in the US version.
No, it is not.
Yeah, he's like screaming and yelling. And unfortunately, this is the one thing I couldn't get in English. So because I'm listening to the American version and watching the French version. So he's just yelling in French. I have no idea why he's yelling. And it's so strange because the credits start to fast forward. He gets in a car, he drives away, and it's just like, this goes on for a long damn time before they like finally go into outtakes from the movie. And again, I don't think, are those in the American version?
No. I was going to say, I am pretty sure that is a direct reference to something that I've already brought up. I believe that might be a reference to Monty Python and the Holy Grail.
Okay. All right. Yeah. That does make sense.
Yeah. And
driving off. Yeah.
And just breaking the fourth wall for no reason. Like,
yeah. And then, like the outtake stuff, which are actually pretty funny. Again, if I could hear them in English, it would probably be a little bit funnier because if somebody blows their line, I'm not really going to know it.
Right.
It might be outtakes. It might just be small clips from the movie itself. But at the very, very end, you get Christina Applegate saying like, "Oh, you mean for the R words?" And she goes, "Sorry, I had to say that." And at the time in 2001 or 2003, whenever this came out, it would have been funny. 2001, sorry, it would have been funny, but by today's 2026 standards, you can't say that word anymore. So, but yeah, that was a good way to end it. It's like, okay, yeah, you give her the last line of the whole thing.
Well, and again, like I think we both would agree, Christina Applegate very funny in this movie.
Oh God, yes, yeah.
Did you see when this film came out on VHS and DVD?
No, 9/11/2001.
It sure did.
Oh, jeez.
Mike White, ladies and gentlemen, would have gotten that Final Jeopardy question right. And I didn't even have to give you a hint.
Wow.
Where were you when the world stopped turning, Mike? Buying Just Visiting on DVD.
Yeah, of course.
That's what Alan Jackson was not expecting my answer to be. I was in line at Tower Records waiting to pick up my special edition version of Just Visiting on DVD.
Dear Mr. Jackson, as a fan of you and your music, I just wanted to share my story of where I was that fateful day.
I was buying my favorite French comedy remade in English language on DVD.
And he goes, "You know what, son? Me too."
Me too. That's where I was when the world stopped turning. Good Lord. What a wild thing to think about, that this was the last thing to come out on, one of the last things to come out on DVD in a pre 9/11 world. Technically, one might even say on that day, I don't know what else came out on that day, but this is part of a very small list of things that are the last things that come out on DVD before the world started.
The world turd.
Yeah, the world started falling apart. Oh my God. Good Lord. I'm so glad we watched this movie, Mike. There are some comedies from my upbringing that I have always wondered how they would play in a modern day setting. Just Visiting is not a film I ever thought I would cover. And it is a film that I am glad I have covered with you because I appreciate that you have enjoyed it, because I know that comedies can kind of be hard. Like I if I were to pick a movie for you and I to do, comedies wouldn't be at the top of that list unless it's something where I know I have an in with. Like I have an idea for something else that I think we should talk about that would be fun. That's another like comedy, but it's a thing where it's like, I know you like the thing or the person already, because like comedies are just so hard. Like, we've talked about them a lot. and I think we've gotten better at doing it, especially having done like Airplane and not Top Gun, but
Top Secret,
and then all of the Naked Gun stuff with Mark Begley. And then, I mean, really, I feel like the thing that kind of put our ability to talk comedies to the test was our Chevy Chase podcast, which we're coming to the very quick end of finally. But comedies are not something that up until recently I really talked about on the Kulturecast, because most of the time it's just, hey, remember this funny joke, which ain't analysis, ain't anything other than just regurging. And again, when a lot of the comedies tend to not be good, it's hard to find anything else to enjoy with them if they're not even at least making you laugh, which is like the lowest of low bars to cross, in my opinion.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And like you said, there's nothing worse than a bad comedy. Really, really sucks. So I'm just really glad that I got to see both Just Visiting and The Visitors. I think The Visitors really needs to be checked out by more people if they haven't. Obviously, like I said before, one of the top grossing films in France, or you might have said that. Great. And I can see why. I can see why this was just eaten up by the public. And yeah, I'm actually going to go back now and check out some of these other things that Clavier and Poiré made together. There's one right before this with Jean Reno as well called Operation Corned Beef, I think it is. So I think I'm definitely going to put that at the top of my watch list. And that's like, of the 4 films that come up with Poiré's IMDb, it's The Visitors, Just Visiting, The Visitors 2, Corridors in Time. 3 doesn't make it. Operation Corned Beef does.
Well, I was looking at 2, another interesting connection to 2. 2 sold more than 8 million tickets in France, and it was the second highest grossing film in 1998 behind, take a guess, a film you and I have talked about that came out in 1998 as well, Le Dîner du Comte.
Oh, yes, the classic. Yes.
I would say the best thing of all the things we watched, really. Like,
I think you're right, which is hilarious because was Pierre Richard in that?
No.
That's
the one that's the only one that doesn't have him.
Yeah. No, and I've been, since we talked about those movies, I have seen more of those Weber films, and I've actually watched some more of those Pierre Richard films as well. So yeah, it's not going away. The sickness of watching French comedies, it's still going to be there. Like you, I'm afraid of diving into other brands of comedy, other countries. I've heard that the Italian ones are very tough to get into. So these French ones seem to be, kind of on my level, even if I don't know everything about French history.
Well, Mike White, March or May this year could be French comedies once again. We could do a little Asterix and Obelix, do a little Christian Clavier. He seems like the less problematic Gerard Depardieu. I mean, Christian Clavier, big schnoz as well. As a big schnoz-haver myself, from one big schnoz-haver to another, Gerard Depardieu is the problematic big schnoz-haver. Christian Clavier doesn't seem to be as problematic. Or is, I think the word on the internet is rapey?
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Yeah, well, I don't know about the rapey with Depardieu, but the peeing on the airplane, that seems a little much.
Oh, Gerard Depardieu has been arrested for sexual assault stuff. Recently.
Mm-hmm. Great. Wonderful.
Well, you know what they say, never meet your heroes, and if you do, run.
I did love the bit on We Hate Movies years ago, where it was, imagine people who have moved to Russia or basically cast themselves out. So it was Steven Seagal, Gerard Depardieu, and Edward Snowden all sharing an apartment.
And yes, to clarify, Gerard Depardieu in May of 2025 was convicted of sexual assault against 2 women. So there you go.
Very rapey. Yeah, very rapey.
So great. So yeah, maybe some more Christian Clavier films. I don't know. I mean, Mike White, March, we haven't even talked about it, but this was something that we were talking about doing last year, and it just kind of fell off the wagon. And so, this year it's an interesting way to start the year talking about French comedies, but it does feel like a little bit of a holdover from last year, given that the Mike White month was French comedies replete with them. So yeah. No, thank you for joining me. This was a fun episode. I'm glad we watched it. I'm glad you enjoyed them. I'm kind of disappointed that the second and third ones weren't great, but they're sequels to comedies. Jesus. Yeah. I talked about how good Christina Applegate was in Anchorman. Has anyone seen Anchorman 2? Don't do it.
Couldn't make it through the first one. Yeah. That's one of my weaknesses.
I get it. I understand that, but let me put it this way. A sequel to a comedy that comes out 5 to 10 or more than that years later, boy, ain't the success that you've set yourself up for is not there. And so, yeah, when you have a comedy coming out 18 years after the second film, it would be 10 years now if they made another one. It's been 10 years since they made the last Just Visiting movie. That's wild to me.
Jean Reno ain't getting any younger.
Neither is Christian Clavier. He's 77, and I think Reno is like 73, maybe. Like, they're both, you know, this isn't Indiana Jones. They could do it one more time.
He aged them.
You gotta answer the story of where the fuck, what happened.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Jean Reno, by the way, Jean Reno is 77 as well. So,
okay. All right.
Question before we end this. Do you know what nationality Jean Reno's parents were?
Actually, no, I don't.
Do you know what Jean Reno's real name is? I just had my mind blown.
What's that?
Jean Reno's name is Juan Moreno y Herrera Jimenez.
Oh,
because his parents were Spanish, because he's fucking Spanish, because he's not ethnically French, I guess. So,
okay.
So now that I look at pictures of him, he does just look like an old Hispanic man. That's very funny. Wow. Yeah. Jean Reno, otherwise known as Jean or Juan Moreno. Fun. That's fun. I didn't know that. Good for him.
Interesting. Yeah, I think he's going to be going time traveling again in his next movie. I'm looking at his IMDb, and there's a Netflix trailer, and looks like medieval times. Maybe they get sucked into a game a la Jumanji.
Oh, that'd be fun. I was going to say, like, I believe Jean Reno made a film with a penguin that looked rather charming called My Penguin Friend.
That was very charming. I got to interview him and the director at the same time. I forgot I have interviewed him before. Yeah.
We're in the waning moments of this episode. Oh, by the way.
Yeah, because I got to talk to them about that penguin film.
That's
My
wild.
Penguin Friend.
Was Jean Reno super nice? I hope he was.
He was really nice, yeah. And it was so tough to just stay on target with him because he's been in so many things I love.
Boying out. And hey, now another thing. I mean, like I said, this would have been the thing for me. It would have been this or hilariously the Da Vinci Code, which he's actually pretty good in.
He's really good in that.
Yeah, or he's also really funny in the Pink Panther with Steve Martin. Like, I think Jean Reno has some, like, his comedy chops are pretty well rounded as an actor, I feel.
Oh, absolutely. But, you know, and he's been in a lot of shit, but he's always good in it. He's kind of like a little bit of a Gene Hackman in that way. Like, he was in that awful Rollerball remake, you know? So
yeah,
it's like, all right, great. But yeah, stuff like Ronin, or I mentioned Mission Impossible, you know, like, yeah, he's been great in so many things. And whenever he shows up, he just adds a lot to whatever he's doing. I think that's why he works so well when it comes to the La Femme Nikita. He's the best part of the movie. He shows up 5 minutes before the end. He's the best part of the movie. And he basically is the character that Harvey Keitel plays in both Point of No Return, the direct remake of La Femme Nikita, but also Mr. Wolf in Pulp Fiction.
Right.
He's the guy that comes in to clean up the situation. It's one of those like, oh, Mr. Wolf's on it. Like, you know, hey, I'm good, you know, as Jules says. So like he means business, man. Was it Leon the Cleaner? Vincent the Cleaner is just such a great character.
Yeah, you're totally right. Like, Jean Reno, his range is very wide. And I think there are a lot of people in the States who would know him for, like you said, just action stuff, or like action adjacent stuff. But then there are the Just Visitings or the Black Panther, or if you're me, like one of the early things I saw after this, so it would have been Godzilla, then this. And then the other thing I saw was he was in Onimusha 3, Demon Siege, which is a video game about samurais where the third game takes place somehow, and he's a Frenchman in there, and like it's you get to play as Jean Reno in a game killing Japanese demons. Wow. In like 2004. Like, it's, you know, this is long before people were really integrating actors in a big way into video games. But I remember Jean Reno was like front and center, like his likeness and his voice. Like,
nice.
Yeah. Like, again, like, it's weird. Jean Reno is just an actor who, like, I don't know if he does or doesn't get his due, but I don't think enough Americans. He reminds me of Chow Yun-Fat in a lot of ways. Like, he's massive where he's from, but here it's like, who? Like,
I mean, unfortunately, I think most people would know him from The Professional. And you mentioned the word rapey before. I mean, that movie just
It's a weird movie.
Gives me bad vibes. There's great things about it. Like I use that gif of Gary Oldman saying everyone quite a few times a day. But yeah, I really like him showing up in things, but I didn't like that movie. I've got one that's going to go on my to watch list, which is called The Jaguar, where he stars, and it's written and directed by Francis Weber, and it's not a remake of Weber's own film.
Hey,
yeah.
I'd watch it. I'm strangely French film it's interesting. We watched that. Didn't we watch that French film a couple years ago, you and I, that one where it was like the actor, like he was like going and like playing all these different roles and he was getting back.
Oh yeah. Hardy Motors. Yeah.
Hardy Motors, another French film. Like French film's very interesting. Like, you know, I'm not opposed to watching international film. I know a lot of people are, because you actually have to pay attention and watch the movie, and you can't just do something else and listen. Which again, like most people don't even listen, so I get it. But subtitled movies, you have to sit and read, and like I get it. Like for some people, that might be asking too much. But if you're gonna sit and enjoy film, like and push yourself as a film watcher, like you should be watching international film. And Jean Reno is like one of the bigger names in French film. Like, and you can do worse than picking up his filmography and running with it.
Oh yeah.
So Mike, when you and I aren't talking about French film or possibly talking about French film, where can people find you and the things that you work on?
You can hear me talk about French film and a whole lot more over at the Projection Booth, which is available at projectionboothpodcast.com, or everything that I do with Chris and without over at weirdingwaymedia.com. Except for the one thing that we do with Richard Haddam, which is our Patreon exclusive over at the $10 and above level. That's at patreon.com/projection booth and patreon.com/culturecast. And that's our show about James Bond called Rankin' on Bond. So by the time you hear this, it might be over. We're there with the Daniel Craig era. So depending on how quickly this one comes out, and I know I've ummed and uhed through quite a bit of it, so I apologize for that, Chris. But yeah, so come and check that out. How about you, Chris?
You can find me over at weirdingwaymedia.com as well, where this show and all the other shows that I work on can be found. We're rolling out some new stuff this year. We're picking up some things that have been sitting around for a while that nobody's done anything with. Read me. And yeah, there's a lot going on. I'm really excited about the new year over at Weirding Way Media and some new opportunities, some new ideas, and that's all rolling right now. That's all in the works now. That's all happening right now. So if that is something that you're interested in, head on over to weirdingwaymedia.com and check that out. Like Mike said, Patreon's a good way to support us financially, but like, rate, and review the show wherever you get it. Please let that be on iTunes, because iTunes seems to be the way that people find us. iTunes seems to be the way that we engage. We're also on YouTube and Spotify. Those are places you can engage with us as well, but iTunes is preferred if you're going to ask. So, Mike, thank you so much for joining me. This was fun. I'm glad we talked about 4 movies in one episode. That's a thing we haven't done in a while, but
it has been, yeah.
Yeah, but I enjoy it. I mean, like we're now we never have to talk about these again. That's done. Check mark in a long list of boxes that neither one of us even knew we had. So, yeah, and as always, we'll catch you on the next episode.